Okay. No. 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 Full screen that bitch. All right. Descartes' physics. This was first published in 2005. And then it was revised literally like what? I don't hold on. Calendar. One, two. I'm sorry, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This was revised 8 weeks ago, which is pretty crazy. Literally 2 months. 8 to 7 weeks, depending on how you look at it. I guess maybe. Well, by definition, it would be 8 weeks. Anyways, but realistically, it was first published. It was first published 20 years ago. Jesus. Okay. Let's hear about René Descartes' physics. Well, René Descartes, 1596 through 1650, is well known as one of the founders of modern philosophy. His influential role in the development of modern physics has been, until the later half of the 20th century, generally underappreciated and underinvestigated by both historians and philosophers of science. Not only did Descartes provide the first distinctively modern formulation of laws of nature and a conservation principle of motion, but he also constructed what would become the most popular theory of planetary motion of the late 17th century. 17th century, that's 1800s? No, 1600s. If the 19th century is 1800s. Yes. That's how I always remember. As the renowned historian of science, Clifford Truesdell has observed, Descartes' physics is the beginning of theory in the modern sense. Ooh, the beginning of theory. Okay. Yet, for all of the forward-looking, seemingly modern aspects of Descartes' physics, many of Descartes' physical hypotheses bear a close kinship with the Aristotelian-influenced science of late medieval and Renaissance scholasticism. It is the unique amalgam of both old and new concepts of the physical world that may account for the current revival of scholarly interest in Descartes' physics. Okay. Number 1, a brief history of Descartes' scientific work. Oh, 1 and 1, 2? I think we can knock this out. Despite his fam as a philosopher, bro. He had his philosopher family. Despite his fame as a philosopher of purely metaphysical problems, such as the relation of the soul and body, or God's existence, it would not be incorrect to conclude that Descartes was a scientist first and a philosopher second. Okay, this is all the fucking Stanford Encyclopedia of philosophy. It's so dedicated to the science of philosophy. I kind of love it. But in this artistic format almost. Or this format with artistic integrity, I would almost say. Depending on what artistic integrity is defined as, to be fair. Despite his fame as a philosopher of purely metaphysical problems, such as the relation of the soul and body, or God's existence, it would not be incorrect to conclude that Descartes was a scientist first and a philosopher second. Not only did Descartes' interest and work in science extend throughout his entire scholarly career, but some of his most important metaphysical works, example, the Meditations, were prompted by a perceived need to equip his science with a metaphysical foundation that would be acceptable to the Aristotelian influenced scholastics. Yet one must be careful not to impose modern conceptions on the natural philosophy of earlier centuries, for much 17th century science was particularly indistinguishable from the most speculative metaphysics of the era, and thus the label natural philosophy is particularly apt for describing 17th century science. In fact, much of Descartes' science is only part of a much larger system that embraces all areas of philosophical investigation, including both his physics and metaphysics. The awakening of Descartes' interest in physics is often dated to late 1618, when Descartes first met Isaac Beckmann, an amateur scientist and mathematician who championed the new mechanical philosophy. The mechanical philosophy's explanation of natural phenomena, which Descartes quickly adopted, rejected the use of scholastic substantial forms. See section 2, fuck you. Rather, the mechanical approach favored a contact or impact model of the interaction of small, unobservable corpuscles of matter, which possess only a limited number of mainly geometric properties, such as size, motion, shape, etc. Over the course of the okay, wait, corpuscles though. We got to go deeper into this word. Minute body or cell in an organism. Wait, what? A minute body or cell in an organism, especially a red or white cell in the blood of vertebrates. You fucking, I kind of want to say that as an insult to people, like, you fucking corpsicle. Minute body or cell in an organism. What the fuck? What type of, like, this is used to refer to red blood cells, and in this, they're rather the mechanical approach favored a contact or impact model of the interaction of small, unobservable corpuscles of matter, which possess only a limited number of mainly. Over the course of the next decade, Descartes worked on a large number of problems in both science and mathematics, with particular emphasis on the theory of light, mechanics including hydrostatics, yep, in the free fall of terrestrial bodies. Much of Descartes' output at this time is both highly mathematical and concerns only specific physical problems, not unlike the work of his contemporary Galileo. One of the accomplishments of these years includes his discovery of the law of refraction, often called Snell's law. When light passes from one medium into another, the single of the angle of incidence maintains a constant ratio to the sine of the angle of refraction. Bro, what's the sine of the angle of the refraction? How would you define that? The sine of the angle of refraction is a key part of Snell's law, which describes how light bends, refracts when moving between two different materials, relating to sine of the angle of the incidence. um, in the material's refractive indices. Calculate the bruh. Ain't nobody got time for all that math, nigga. Okay. By the beginning of the 1630s, however, Descartes embarked on a more ambitious plan to construct a systematic theory of knowledge, including physics. The result was The World, an important text in that it essentially contains the blueprints of the mechanical/geometric physics, as well as the vortex theory of planetary motion, that Descartes would continue to refine and develop over the course of his scientific career. I just started thinking about the concept of intelligence being inhumane. I'm just gonna write that down. Intelligence being inhumane. It's being inhumane. Um The result was The World, 1633, an important text that it essentially contains the blueprints of the mechanical/geometric physics, as well as the vortex theory of planetary motion, that Descartes would continue to refine and develop over the course of his scientific career. Before publishing the treatise, however, he learned of the Church's 1633 condemnation of Galileo for promoting Copernicanism, which prompted Descartes to withdraw his work from publication, since Descartes also advanced Copernicanism in the world. In the 1630s, the publication of the geometry, the optics, and the meteorology, along with the philosophical introduction, discourses on the method, 1637, further presented the Cartesian hypotheses on such topics as the law of refraction, vision, and the rainbow. Yet, besides a brief sketch of his metaphysics and physics in the discourse, part 4 and 5, a comprehensive treatment of his physics had to await the 1644 publication of the Principles of Philosophy. This work not only represents Descartes' most fully developed and exhaustive investigation of physics, it also provides the metaphysical underpinnings of his physical system in part 1. As an embodiment of his mature views, the principles will thus form the basis of our examination of Cartesian physics. Fuck, I did say I would read this too. The translations, with minor variations, are from Descartes, 1979, 1983, 1984a, 1984b, 1991, but the passages are identified with respect to the Adam and Tannery edition of the Ouvres de Descartes, according to the standard convention at, followed by volume and page number. Passages cited from the principles, however, will be identified by PR, followed by volume and article, with a final F indicating the inclusion of new material from the French translation of 1647. Suggested readings. For recent in-depth examinations of Descartes' physics, see Garber, 1922a, and Deschen, 1996. Suchester, 2014, covers Descartes' early physics from 1618 to 1633. Concise survey of Cartesian physics can be found in Garber, 1992b. The scientific career of Descartes, with special emphasis on his physics, is presented in Shea, 1991. See also Galkroger, Schuster, and Sutton, 2000, for the many aspects of his natural philosophy. Galkroger 2002 examines the principles of philosophy, especially the physics, where Slowick, 2002, focused primarily on the Cartesian space and relational motion. The historical background to much in Dakar physics is also treated in Airy 2011. On methodology in Descartes' natural philosophy, see Smith 2009, while Hattab 2009, Mackamer and Maguire 2009, and Brown in Normore 2019 covered the development of various ideas important to his physics on the reception of Descartes' work in early forms of Cartesianism, with special attention devoted to physics. See Schmaltz 2005-2017, Dobre 2017. Yeah, we ain't reading all that. 15 minutes is a blessing, baby. Thank you for being with me and reading with me. I love you, and I hope you have a great day.